Hey, this is Miko, and I'm going to talk to you about negative equity. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible, but also to cover the basics. And this is all based on questions we most commonly hear from car buyers, trying to figure out what it is, how to deal with it, and all that. So, variations, just for fun, throw in a couple of names. What is negative equity? Also, sometimes it's known as being upside down, meaning, just a metaphor of your car being upside down. Sometimes it's just mispronunciation and not knowing how to spell and call it nege eggy or whatever. And sometimes we call it as being buried in the car. This is more of a car salespeople slang, but pretty much the same thing. So, what does it mean to have negative equity or to be buried in the car? When you have a car loan, you always have certain amount that's the payoff of the loan, how much it will take for you or somebody else to pay it off and to cancel the loan. That's the payoff. This is what here is called the amount owed. And there's the car value. So the car value is what is potentially you could sell it for. It could be private, which is a little difficult when you have a loan, but more likely it's your car's value, it's its trade-in value. When you go to a dealer, more often people trade it for other cars. Sometimes maybe you just want to get rid of it and you can sell your car to another car to a dealer while there's a loan on the car. So if the car value equals to the payoff, then the equity is zero. There's no equity either way. If your car is worth more than its payoff, then you have positive equity. We're going to talk about what happens when your car is worth less than what the payoff is. Side note, um, sometimes dealers ask you how much you own the car, is there a loan? It really should not matter. It's not like it's hidden information and you should not say it, but it really doesn't matter at all. The car's worth what it's worth. You can tell them it doesn't matter, or you can tell them really it's not going to change the fact that you can still negotiate. You can still check with other dealers, maybe check with online buying services like CarMax, Carvana, Driveway, which is whatever. So, yeah, basically, negative equity is that difference between what you owe to the bank and what you can actually get for your car. All right. So when is that a problem? When is it a problem that you have negative equity? Well, the real situations, there are a couple when it's a problem. When there's a total loss, when your car is wrecked, you got into an accident, and it's just not drivable. Insurance says they're not going to fix it. So your insurance will pay um, the market value for the car, but not necessarily what you own the car. So if you have that negative equity, you're going to owe that money. And this is kind of a problem. Side note, when you buy a car and you can tell that there's going to be a significant negative equity from the start, gap insurance is could be a good idea at the right price, of course, not necessarily getting from a dealer. But what it does is that it covers that negative equity. If you have gap, that means that if the car is stolen or totaled, there's no more car. You don't have to pay to cover the loan. Insurance pays what it pays, and then the gap insurance will pay the difference. There's small print, not going to get into it right now, but this is where gap is important. Now, overall negative equity is pretty common. It's not, it doesn't mean you made a big mistake, but like I'll show you specific numbers. When you walk out of the dealership with, especially with a new car, that car drops its value right away. That's after one day, it's already a used car. It's going to be worth less than a new car. So it's normal to be in a position of negative equity. So it's a problem when there's a total loss. Another big problem is when you have expensive repairs, repairs to the point that maybe the car's value is 5,000 and you got some quotes and they're telling you it needs a new engine or a new battery. It's going to cost 7,000. You cannot, well, you can sometimes finance it, but it's difficult to finance it. Most people unfortunately don't have 7,000 laying around. So then this negative equity is a problem. If you owe 10, the car's worth 5, it's probably worth less if it needs a new engine. Now there's a lot of negative equity and you have to do something, right? That's another problem that sometimes you have to get a new car. This is an unfortunate situation. So that's when it's really a problem. When is it not a problem? Well, when your car is doing fine, you can just drive it. Negative equity does not affect you whatsoever. Negative equity, sometimes we see people just freak out because they bought a new car and then they start playing with numbers and they see, oh, okay, market change. Now the car is worth 10,000 less. They still owe 50. Now it's worth 40. And they start freaking out. It's not a problem. If your car is fine, it's under warranty, you're enjoying the car, or maybe not even enjoying that much, but the car is working fine for you, don't worry about it. It's fine. In the end, whether you have a 36-month loan, 60 or 84-month loan, and in the end, there's not going to be negative equity because even if the car's value drops to zero, the loan drops to zero. You're not going to owe more than the car is worth when the loan is done. So if your car is fine, just don't worry about it. I probably have negative equity. I have a lease. It doesn't really matter at this point, right? Because I'm not worried about this at this point. I'll worry about it at some point later. So it's not a problem when the car is fine. Also, it's not a problem when you start looking for to change the car for whatever reasons, and we hear a lot of reasons. Like one thing is like the midlife crisis. That's the biggest thing that we see. Sometimes it could be disguised as something else. Oh, well, I need a new truck because I might get a boat, so I might need to tow it. Or we hear this a lot from families. Well, now I have two kids and my Honda Civic is not going to work for me, so I need a van. So calm down. You really think hard if you do need a new car. If you're in this position of negative equity, maybe new car is not in the cards for you. This one's working fine. You can make it work. Then don't worry about it. Okay, just don't get a new car. And coming from a salesperson, this is really the more you keep the car you have, bearing unforeseen, specific scenarios, the more you keep it, the more you save money. Even with repairs, it's really hard to get to a point where normal average car, Honda, Toyota, whatever economy car is costing you more in repairs, more it's costing you more than getting a new car. So just don't worry about it. Keep the car. Stop that thing of switching to new cars. If you don't have the money for it, you don't have to do it. So why is it a problem and how it really works? I did this beautiful graphic that if my manager saw it, probably would have choked me, but I think it works. You're going to buy a new car, there's the car price, $20,000, right? But it's not the full price. There's always something else. At minimum, there's tax and license. Not going to talk about add-ons, mandatory stuff. Tax and license have to be added, right? So now the car, if it was 20,000, 10% tax and license, now it's 22. All right. You go to the bank because you don't have 22,000, you want a car, you need a car, and you tell the bank, I want to finance it. How much will the bank finance it? And I did a separate video on car loan, how it works, but in 2 words, the bank is going to look at the car and say, okay, it's 20,000, that's the new car price, but the wholesale price of the car is 18,000, right? This is what they come out from. So they thinking, okay, the car value is 18. This is what's important, not what you pay for the car. That's irrelevant. They're going to loan you the amount that's relative to the amount they think they can get back if you don't pay the loan or if something happens, right? You could have the best credit and, not you, but maybe me, I can drop dead from a heart attack tomorrow and the bank has to deal with my car. So they have to think about that. And then they say, okay, we're going to loan you the money with the car as being the collateral, and we're going to decide what's going to be the percentage to the car wholesale value, right? So if you have good credit and it's a bank that wants to help the manufacturer, they can say, okay, we're going to give you 120% of the car wholesale value. Or sometimes they might say if it's a new car and it's a captive bank, they will say off MSRP. And this will cover you, including tax and fees. And you might be able to walk away with zero down if you have good credit and it's the right car, right? So now it's fine. Now, if you cannot come up with that and they say, okay, because of your credit and it's a used car, it's 10-year-old, we're only going to give you 80% of the car wholesale value. So the rest you're going to have to cover with the down payment. This is where the down payment that covers that difference. And also, side note, down payment is really good. Well, it's good. It's good because it's going to take you out of this negative equity situation, but it's also, it saves you on the interest. Right now, interest is really high. If you have money down and the interest is like over 6%, I would say it makes sense to put as much money as possible. So this is normal scenario. If you have negative equity, that is stacked on top of the car price, tax and fees, there's extra thing, and this has to come up from somewhere. The bank is not going to say, oh, well, you're in a bad situation, so we really understand, we're going to raise the loan value. No, they don't care. This is more risk for them. Absolutely, they will not do that. So that money has to come up from your down payment. This will means you'll have to have more money just to get approved. We're not even talking about the payment right now, but this is why negative equity is a problem. It puts you in a situation where to get out of this loan for whatever reason, you need to have a lot of money, or there's might be some other ways. We'll talk about it later, but you really need, it's hard to get approved for a loan unless you have a lot of money to put down. So that's one problem. Another problem is how it affects the monthly payment. So quick math. Normal loan is the loan amount, whatever, after the down payment, the bank decided to finance, divide by the loan term plus APR. Not going to talk about how it's calculated. Always a good idea to play with online car calculators. There's no excuse these days not to know how it works, right? You can Google loan calculator and figure out exactly how it works, and then you just don't get blindsided by the dealer. So this is your monthly payment. This is without negative equity. If you have negative equity, that will have to be added in the same scenario. Negative equity divided by the loan term plus the APR, that is added to your monthly payment. So real life scenario, you got a $20,000 car loan, 60 months, 10% interest is $424 a month. That's your payment. It's that simple. This is simple math. Now, if you say, well, I have a more expensive car and now I want to lower my payment. So my payment was 800. Now I'm hoping to get it to whatever. And then somehow the calculation is you have $5,000 negative equity. This is what $5,000 negative equity will do. It will change your payment from 424 to 531. So it's literally over $100 per month just to pay on the car that you're trying to get rid of or have to get rid of or feel like you need to get rid of. But this is just the real life example, how much it changes your actual monthly payment. So not only it's hard to get approved, you have to put money down. If you did not cover that negative equity with your down payment, now this is how much it affects your payment. And this is important when people talk. I'll talk about the most frequently asked questions. I have negative equity, I want to lower my payment. It's pretty much impossible because this is the math. This is how it works. All right. So how can you actually get rid of it? Well, I think you already can see that's pretty evident. First thing, keep the car. Okay. If you keep the car for the term of the loan, even if you don't have money to put towards it, just keep the payments. They might be high, but just tough it out. In the end, the car hopefully still drives. Okay. Maybe you have to fix it up. But then in the end, you don't owe anything. Okay. Whatever it's worth, it's worth. You have a car, you don't have the loan. Okay. This is the smartest financial thing. Now, if you cannot do that, if there's some kind of weird calculation and that now it costs more to fix it. And by the way, if you got yourself into a car that's known for needing a lot of work, like some luxury cars are known for it, especially German or, adjacent, I'm not going to throw around brands right now, but that's why these cars are so cheap when they are used because it costs a lot to fix them. Neither here nor there. All right, save for a down payment, save money. That's how you get rid of. You get smart financially. You save more money. Maybe you do some kind of ride shares, side gig. If you want to be proactive, you can pay the principal down. If you cannot be proactive, just make sure you have some money on the side that if something happens, you have money to put down so it can get approved and your payment is not super high. Repossession. This is not pleasant, not something I recommend, but this is a legal way to get rid of negative equity. It's going to have huge consequences. It's going to cost you a lot. So definitely think hard before you do that. Now, sometimes people say, well, what if it's voluntary possession? Doesn't matter whatsoever. Might cost slightly less, but it kills your credits just the same. And what happens is that if you get rid of the car with repossession, then if and when you need another car, it'll be pretty much impossible to get a loan until you build your credit back up, which is literally like years, like 7 to 10 years to do that. Um, some dealers offer this very shady, still legal, but shady practice. They say, okay, you have a lot of negative equity, so how about this? We're going to get you another car. We're not going to take this car and trade. We're going to get you another car with low money down or no money down. And then once you get that car and the loan is funded, you just repo that car. Just leave it somewhere, leave it on a dealer lot, and that's it. And then you have a new car and that negative equity is gone. Well, it's not really gone, right? The bank is going to come after you. It's going to, again, kill your credit. Your credit cards, it'll be impossible to get a credit card. It's just, this is like last chance if you like you're about to be homeless, maybe, then I don't know, maybe then that's it's a solution. So I will list here because it's legal and we're only going to talk about legal ways. Okay, so really not a good thing. But realistically, here's what you need. You need a car that's a new car, right? Because only new cars have big rebates. And I assume right away it's not going to be the car that people like, okay, that people want, because there are no big rebates on cars that sell well. There's no big rebate on Porsche 911 or Toyota Sienna. There are big rebates on trucks that don't sell. Electric cars get big rebates from the government or whatever. So this is something that will help you. Now, it's not going to make everything go away, right? But big rebate will help you get financed because now that rebate lowers the amount you're trying to finance and you can tax some negative equity. And another thing that will help if you really need to get rid of negative equity is if it's a lease. Why will it help? It's not going to really help you to lower the payment because tacking like that negative equity that you divide by the loan term, right? So now instead of dividing 55,000 by 60, you divided it by 36. Now it changes the payment not by $100, but like $180, right? So that's not really the best thing. But the good thing with the lease that it's if it's a 3-year lease and 3 years you're done. There's no negative equity. You break even, you return that car, you can start over. That's why the conventional recommended thing is a rebate. So like lease an electric car, that's a way if you really have to get rid of a negative equity. So really not going to help you if you're trying to get, you know, a truck to tow your boat or trying to get Porsche 911 because you're of that age, or you think that because you have 2 kids, suddenly you need a minivan and your sedan is not going to work for you. So frequently asked questions like now just where we get those questions, what kind of questions we have. I can't afford the car. Somebody makes a stupid decision, get played by the dealer, does not read the paperwork, a lot of different scenarios, lose their job, sometimes it's not your fault, and you cannot afford the car. So people try to get rid of that payment basically, right? So they're not even worried about equity, they're worried about the payment. But if you're in this position of negative equity, maybe you rolled a car, previous negative equity, now that's why your payment is high. There's really no magic pill. Okay, some people think, well, dealer can do something. Again, they can find a car with a big rebate that nobody wants. They can offer you a lease. But when you have a lot of negative equity and no money down, you're not going to lower your payment. There's just no way. Sorry. I want to lower my payment, pretty much the same thing. So the ways to deal with it, like you have to tough it out, you have to save money, you made a mistake, now we got to work with this. If maybe you decide that, bankruptcy is the way to go, then the car gets repoed, your credit gets killed, and you start over. Maybe that's the way for you to learn from your mistakes. And I'm really sorry if that's the case. Can I get rid of the car and keep the loan? So we hear this sometimes from people that don't understand how it works. They think, okay, maybe I'll sell the car, right? I owe 10, I'll sell it for 5, and I'll take that money and I'm just going to keep paying and somehow it's going to work out. The problem is the bank is not going to agree to that because they need collateral, right? There's no loan if there's no collateral. If your car is gone, you really cannot sell it because you don't have the title in most states, or if you do have the title, it'll say that there's a lien holder. So you really cannot get rid of the car and keep the payment. This is not a thing. You cannot trade a car and keep your old payment. That's not a thing either, okay? Every time you get rid of the car, that loan has to be satisfied. Can a dealer do something for me? So when people get used to going to dealer and dealer starts with, $1,000 a month payment, then they have some work it out to 700, then people think, well, that dealer can do some magic. They can talk to the bank. They can find the bank. They can convince the bank. They can find some money laying around somewhere. No dealer cannot do anything. Okay. They cannot overpay for your car. Maybe there's like a little bit of spread. Maybe they, undervalued it a lot and they have room to play. But if they were honest and the value of the car, they cannot double it just because you owe money on it. They cannot convince the bank. There's no trickery that they can do. The math is the math. Understand the math and know that this is what you have to work with. And this is it. I hope it was helpful. Always happy to answer questions in the comments. And if you guys think about other videos, anything that's not clear, let me know. Thanks.